Previous generations spent much of their lives trying to own things: a house, land, a car, furniture, a business. Ownership represented stability, something permanent, something that truly belonged to you. But modern life is changing. Quietly, almost invisibly, millions of people are entering a very different kind of economy. An economy where ownership matters less and permanent payment matters more. Today, modern human life increasingly runs through subscriptions. Music is rented, movies are rented, software is rented, storage is rented, transportation is rented. Even homes themselves increasingly feel temporary. And perhaps the strangest part is this: many people no longer expect to fully own large parts of their lives anymore. A young worker pays monthly for housing, streaming software, internet transportation, cloud storage, phone plans, insurance, month after month, year after year. And slowly, modern existence becomes organized around continuous access rather than permanent ownership. For most of human history, ownership carried enormous psychological importance. Owning land meant survival. Owning a home meant security. Ownership created stability, independence, long-term control. A person who owned resources possessed freedom many others lacked. But modern economies evolved differently. Large corporations discovered something powerful. Recurring payments are more profitable than one-time purchases. A customer who buys once generates limited income. A customer who pays forever generates permanent revenue. And slowly, entire industries transformed around this idea. Software changed first. People once bought programs permanently. Now many products operate through subscriptions. Access replaces ownership. The same transformation spread across entertainment. People once physically owned DVDs, CDs, games, media collections. Today, enormous portions of culture exist temporarily through monthly payments. The moment subscriptions end, access disappears. Perhaps this subtly changes psychology too. Ownership creates permanence. Subscription creates dependency. And modern life increasingly depends on systems people never fully control. Housing reveals this transformation most clearly. For previous generations, owning a home often represented one of adulthood's major goals. But in many modern cities, housing prices rose dramatically faster than wages. As a result, millions now rent indefinitely. And for younger generations especially, permanent ownership increasingly feels distant or unrealistic. This creates deep psychological consequences. Renting can create feelings of uncertainty because stability feels temporary. A landlord can raise prices, a lease can end, housing can disappear, and slowly, people begin feeling less rooted emotionally. Modern work culture intensified this instability further. People relocate frequently for jobs. Careers become uncertain. Gig economies expand. Long-term permanence weakens. And modern life increasingly feels temporary economically. Debt also plays a major role. Many people technically own homes or cars, while still owing decades of payments to banks. In reality, ownership itself often became conditional. A missed payment can remove assets entirely. So even ownership increasingly exists through ongoing financial obligation. Perhaps this is why many modern people feel financially trapped despite technological progress. The system rarely stops charging. Monthly obligations continue endlessly: rent, loans, subscriptions, insurance, taxes, services, and slowly, human beings become permanently connected to economic systems requiring constant payment simply to function normally inside society. Technology accelerated this dramatically. Digital systems made recurring payments frictionless. A person no longer physically hands over money regularly. Payments happen automatically, quietly, almost invisibly. And because transactions became less emotionally noticeable, subscription culture expanded rapidly. This creates a strange modern reality. A person may earn a decent income, yet still feel financially pressured constantly because enormous portions of life now require ongoing payment indefinitely. Ownership becomes harder, dependency becomes normalized. Even transportation is changing. People increasingly lease vehicles, rent bikes, use ride-sharing services. Access matters more than possession. And younger generations often prioritize flexibility over ownership because permanent ownership feels economically difficult or unstable. Perhaps modern civilization itself is psychologically shifting from permanence toward temporary access, and this changes how people experience life emotionally. Ownership creates rootedness. Temporary access creates uncertainty. Social media intensified this psychologically too. People constantly see luxury lifestyles online, expensive apartments, designer products, dream vacations. But behind many visible lifestyles exist financing systems, debt, leasing, and subscriptions. Modern status often depends less on ownership itself, and more on maintaining appearances continuously. This creates economic pressure that previous generations experienced differently. People increasingly feel required to remain economically active constantly just to maintain access to modern life. Not luxury, access. And perhaps this is the deeper fear many people feel today. Not simply poverty, but instability. The fear that if income stops temporarily, large portions of life disappear quickly. Housing, healthcare, transportation, digital access. Modern systems became difficult to pause. This may explain why financial anxiety became so widespread even among working people, because modern economies increasingly operate through permanent recurring obligation. The payments rarely end completely. Still, subscription economies also provide convenience. People gain access to services once expensive or inaccessible. Technology became more flexible. Entertainment became cheaper short-term. In many ways, subscription systems increased accessibility enormously. But convenience often comes with dependence, and perhaps modern civilization quietly accepted that trade. There is another deeper psychological effect too. Ownership historically connected people to long-term thinking. A home, a neighborhood, a community. Temporary systems can weaken permanence psychologically, and as modern life becomes increasingly flexible, digital, and rented, many people quietly begin feeling less stable emotionally. Perhaps this is why younger generations increasingly crave financial freedom, remote living, simpler lifestyles, independence from systems, not because humans reject modernity, but because people still deeply desire control over their own lives. And ownership historically represented control. Now artificial intelligence, digital currencies, and platform economies may accelerate this transformation even further. Entire futures could become increasingly subscription-based. Transportation, housing, software work systems, digital identity, human life itself may become more economically interconnected than ever before. And maybe that is the strangest part of all this. Human beings invented economic systems to create stability and progress, yet many modern people increasingly feel temporary inside the very systems designed to support them, because perhaps the real issue is not simply renting products or services. Perhaps the deeper issue is psychological, the feeling that modern life itself no longer fully belongs to the individual living it. And maybe that is why ownership still feels emotionally powerful, not because humans simply want possessions, but because ownership represents something deeper: permanence, security, control, freedom. Things many people quietly fear. Modern life is slowly taking away, so perhaps the real question is not, why do humans rent so much now? Perhaps the real question is, what happens to human psychology when entire generations stop expecting to truly own the lives they are building?